Oh, oh, hey. As you can see, this is where I live now. So yeah, here we have the glass door. I didn't know my house was recently taken over by my own evil clone. You know how it is, the standard weekend affairs. But you know, I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually kind of enjoying it out here. It's kind of nice and peaceful, I'm not gonna lie. Oh, it's the notification of the new Mario movie. Finally, I've been waiting so long for this. Let's check it out. The film industry, one of the largest providers of entertainment ever, and has touched the hearts of many around us. I still find it hard to believe, despite the fact that other industries like video games or music have generally been more profitable than movies, at least in recent times, and yet despite all of that, these things are still incredibly loved. Seriously, movies have become so popular that people literally spend their day and life dedicated to nothing but sitting around and talking about these things. Wait, what are you looking at me for? One of the most common occurrences in the film industry is to adapt other forms of media and turn it into films. This can be from things like books, songs, hell, even people's lives. The most interesting of adaptations are that of video games, taking what was once interactive media and somehow transforming it into that is feature length and watchable is an interesting concept, and it's definitely caught the eye of a lot of major studios as well as the general audience. Imagine a game that you've loved to play for so long becoming this fully realized experience that you can watch is incredible. And especially nowadays, with how cinematic a lot of games feel, you'd think this is a no-brainer to do and it would be so easy to pull off, right? Right? Yeah, a lot of video game movies turn out really bad. You're probably wondering, why would companies even bother making them then? Oh wait, that's right.
Money, 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 money.
Wow, we're really starting off strong with this one. The Super Mario Bros. Movie, one of the most infamous as well as worst video game adaptations of all time. Mario is definitely not the easiest thing to adapt, but you'd think most people would get it right. I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, how do you mess it up? This is how you mess it up. Seriously, I have no idea what they were thinking. For some reason, the movie has an incredibly dark and cynical tone to it. Mario and Luigi are chased by a criminal gang. Bowser is now a regular human crime lord. Princess Peach is now Princess Daisy and is sort of like the MacGuffin of the movie. And all the familiar characters have a weird twist to them. I mean, how is that a mushroom? Do you know what was really popular back in the 90s? Dinosaurs. And do you know what it was in Mario at the time? Yoshi and... I mean, what the fuck? I mean, seriously, this still amazes me how this even got through the conception phase. Company should have realized this was awful. How was any of this even remotely related to Mario? Outside of the characters' names, nothing about this was anything like the game. I mean, the show starts off pretty well. You got the classic Mario theme playing, and then everything seems alright. And then it all derails from there, and the end product is honestly one of the most irritating and frustrating watches I've ever seen. The only really interesting thing of note is that the music for this was done by Alan Silvestri, the Back to the Future guy, in case you're wondering. Other than that, this movie has nothing going for it. If I had to give this movie a rating, I wouldn't. Do you like Tom Holland? Do you like Mark Wahlberg? Do you like Lara Croft? Wait, actually don't answer that one. Well, if you said yes to all three of those things, then you probably enjoyed the Uncharted movie. released all the way back in the wonderful year of... Uncharted was one of the coolest franchises that Sony ever created, and of course seeing it turned into a movie was always something clamored around by fans. Uncharted at its core is based on a lot of cinematic action movies. It's practically in its DNA, so of course doing a movie adaptation of that was so obvious, and yet it took them so long to do it. Like, apparently early on in the 2000s, Mark Wahlberg was supposed to play Nathan Drake, but it was in so much production hell that eventually he had to play Victor Sully. And I don't know how he acts in the games, but from what I've seen in this movie, it really just seems like Mark Wahlberg. So I guess they decided to get Spider-Man to play Nathan Drake, because Nathan Drake swings sometimes, and he climbs. That's basically Spider-Man. And then we got the Uncharted movie, and it is so... Sorry for that. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, movie's crap. As someone who's never played the games before, this movie comes across as baby's first action-adventure flick. It just feels incredibly underwhelming. The characters don't have interesting arcs, the CGI is mediocre at best, and the story and how it concludes is very predictable and average. Nothing about this really screams originality. It's just your standard action flick, but with characters from a video game, and literally that's the only appeal. The fact that it's characters from a video game and that it's Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. Yeah, I'd rather watch polygonal boobs, thank you very much. Next film! Here we go now, Tomb Raider 2018 was slated to be the big reboot of the Tomb Raider movies, but this time it's going to be serious, more in tone to the modern games released at the time. I remember the hype for this movie was real. This felt like this was going to be the real video game movie, the first proper one, and it came out and I don't remember a single thing about it. This is not a joke, by the way. I've watched this movie and I can't tell you anything that happens, like anything at all. I remember that it's about Lara Croft. I'm pretty sure it's trying to find out more about her father's legacy, but even then I could just be thinking about the games. Honestly, the plot just completely left me during and after the movie. Seriously, nothing about this was memorable. The action set pieces were standard. I'll admit, the film looked good, okay? It was shot competently, it was directed well enough. Even the main actress who played Lara Croft, she really put her heart and effort into this movie. But the whole thing was very bland. It just feels like another generic movie. And it's sad to say this, because these cinematic games are some of the most breathtaking stories ever. They can compete with some major action movies. So when you hear that they're going to adapt them for a feature-length experience, you're going to expect high hopes from them. But then they always turn out to be so bare bones and generic. And that's not at all what these games were like, and it's just sad to see. It's so weird to say, but the old cheesy movie from the 2000s turned out better than the modern day gritty reboot. When you hear that sentence out loud, that's when you know something is wrong is going on. Oh, Mortal Kombat, okay. This is one I was actually really excited for, because unlike the previous two game series we talked about, Mortal Kombat is a franchise that I really adore, and I was anticipating seeing this franchise finally become live action in glorious realism. So when it finally hit the big screens, I watched it at home. Yeah, this movie unfortunately came out during the peak of the pandemic. Because of this, most people, including myself, couldn't really go out to watch it. But that being said, watching it at home wasn't that bad, and I actually really enjoyed this movie. Don't get me wrong, it has its issues, which we'll talk about, but the main thing I wanted from this movie was to have good action sequences and decent special effects. And to that end, this movie delivered. Especially from the opening, it's shot incredibly well, and the CGI is great. The performances are pretty alright. the standout was definitely Kano. Seriously, he didn't need to slap so hard in this movie, and I kind of actually hated it when they killed him off. Seriously, he was the best part about this thing. Everything else though, it's not that great. See, the main character for this movie was made up for this film, and I don't really understand that decision. I mean, out of all the characters from the games, you couldn't have chosen at least one of them to be the lead. And unfortunately, the main character doesn't have anything really interesting about him. He has a generic looking suit and his abilities aren't really that intense or interesting to watch. And another downside is the utilization of Scorpion and Sub-Zero, the mascots of the franchise. They're utilized very minimally throughout the movie, and I was really upset about that. The other characters do get more time to shine, and that's always cool to see. And thankfully, the movie is gory and there's tons of fatalities. Of course, not as extreme as the games, but still really gory to watch. This movie overall was pretty good. Okay, cool. We're finally starting to see a change with these movies. They're turning out a lot better than I thought they would. Alright, let's see some more popular video game movies. I haven't watched it. I haven't watched it. I've seen this one. It's not good though. Yeah, unfortunately, with these older titles, I didn't really get the chance to watch them. It's not that I wasn't planning to, I really was. I mean, these are infamous titles. I mean, Street Fighter the movie. Come on, obviously I wanted to watch that. The last 7 years or so is where the popularity of video game movies really rised and where the quality, for the most part, increased. So this is the time span I'm going to be looking at for the rest of the video. Okay, with all of that laid out, the next video game movie we have is... Detective Pikachu. I almost forgot about this movie. I mean, do you remember when this was announced and released? This was the huge thing. Pokemon finally becoming live action for the first time, and Ryan Reynolds voicing Pikachu. Yeah, okay, their first attempt at this is certainly weird, but I think the end result generally was well. It turned out to being one of the highest grossing video game movies at the time, and I think generally the reception to this movie was quite warm. And from what I've seen, yeah, Detective Pikachu is actually really fun. The movie follows our main character, who I don't care enough about to really remember his name, so I'll call him Jake instead. So anyway, Jake moves to this Pokemon city where he encounters his father's Pikachu, but his father has mysteriously gone missing, and the Pikachu he has can speak English, yet only he can understand him. So now they set out on a journey to not only find his father again, but also discover what's going on. This entails going on a large adventure, uncovering mysterious Pokemon experiments, and ultimately saving the Pokemon world. It's a traditional Pokemon story for sure, but one that still works. It's really about seeing the Pokemon in action. That's what the appeal of the movie is. And I gotta say, the utilization of them in this movie is really cool. Seeing them used in the daily sense outside of fighting is really entertaining. And even seeing them used as like dogs in cage fights, that was actually a really cool aspect. And the CGI on most of the Pokemon look really good, especially Pikachu. Easily one of the best designs he's had in live action. Otherwise, the story is pretty predictable. It's eventually revealed that, shocker, Ryan Reynolds is actually the kid's father, and he was somehow trapped in his Pokemon. It's kinda weird the kid doesn't recognize his own father's voice, but we're going with it. Also, did I mention Ditto's in this movie, and it can shapeshift into humans, meaning the human characters look like this? The first Angry Birds movie is one of the most generic and standard films you'll ever see. The story for the first Angry Bird movie is very basic. It's literally straight from the mobile game. The pigs come in, they steal the birds' eggs, the birds fight the pigs, birds win. That's it. But the second movie, I kid you not, when I went into this one, I was expecting more mediocrity, nothing harmful or anything, something that's still entertaining, but nothing spectacular. You know, it's the sequel to the Angry Bird movie. When I sat down and saw that, hang on, it was created by the same guy who did Flapjack, like the Cartoon Network show, he did this movie, that sparked my interest. And when I finally watched the thing, I was completely shocked. The Angry Birds movie 2 has no right being as good and funny as it actually turned out. In case you're wondering, this movie, unlike the first one, was done by Sony Pictures Animation, which have consistently produced some of the greatest animated films of all time, and what they're most well known for is their humor. And that sticks with this movie. This movie has those writers along with a very good director on board, and all of these things combined produced a funny, entertaining, and frankly, one of the best video game movies I've ever seen.
Seriously, I was really surprised with how the Angry Birds movie turned out. And man, it just gets better from here. Seriously, the next 2 movies we have are something really special.
As of 2022, the best modern day video game movie, at least in my opinion, has to be the 2 Sonic the Hedgehog live action movies. When I heard about these movies being in production, it caught my interest. Out of all video game characters, Sonic has definitely adapted well to other forms of media, from live concerts to popular TV shows. Generally, most Sonic TV shows were fairly enjoyable, so I thought a movie adaptation could be quite good, but I didn't realize how good it could actually be. The Sonic the Hedgehog movie, unlike any other video game movies, actually embraces what made the game so fun. Sonic's fun, fast abilities, as well as its sense of adventure, is kept through this movie. The main villain, Dr. Robotnik, is played brilliantly by Jim Carrey, easily one of the best celebrity castings for these type of movies. He really has the energy and the humor down to a T. It's obvious that the creators actually enjoyed the franchise they were working on. Tons of references to the game, but I think the most important thing this movie gets right is that it works on its own as a standalone movie. So many video game movies I've watched from games I've never even played feel odd. They don't feel like they were made for a general audience. They feel like they're made for people who already played these games and just kind of know what's going along. But with this movie, I feel like anyone can watch this movie and find enjoyment. Fans can enjoy it because of the references to the games, while new people can enjoy it simply because it's a well-told story. Out of the 2 movies, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is definitely the best out of all of them. The visual effects, the scale of the movie has been increased immensely. This movie has an epic sense of action and adventure, and it's cool seeing Sonic interact with even more characters from the video games. I think for fans of Sonic, this is what we can call the most perfect adaptation of the character. Pretty much all the elements from the game have been adapted for this specific movie and have been done effectively. But as I mentioned before, for fans who just like the movie as its own thing, the first one that is, the sequel just feels like a natural extension of that. Even if you haven't played the games, yet again, this movie still feels like its own thing. Both sides of the spectrum can enjoy this movie. And that's why, as of right now, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is one of my favorite video game movies. But then again, I know. It's really odd to put this movie when it hasn't even come out yet, but honestly, as of seeing this trailer, I genuinely think the Super Mario movie has a chance of really being a fantastic video game movie. Mario at its core is all about entertaining people, and this movie seems to be doing that. The animation is really gorgeous, especially for Illumination standards, and the voice acting, for the most part, is pretty solid. I think what makes this movie a bit odd is just seeing these Mario characters in high definition and seeing them animated like this. It's kind of strange, but that's just what's gonna happen with a character who's rarely ever been on any sort of TV show or movie. So finally getting a chance to see Mario on the big screen honestly has me really hyped, and seeing what they've done with this movie, I genuinely think it's gonna turn out well. And yeah, that has been a look at video game movies. Some of them are good, but a lot of them we've looked at today have been very mediocre. But as we have gone through the years, we've definitely seen them slowly begin to become better films. Currently, I wouldn't call them masterpieces yet that are comparable to other film adaptations, but I think as of right now, video game movies are in a good spot. And I think with all of that said, this was the slight magic of video game movies.
Well, there you have it. This was video game movies. Now, as I stated earlier, I couldn't cover all of them, but if there are any other ones you might want me to look at in future, go ahead, comment down below. Maybe I'll check them out. But for now, I think I've taken a good look at them. By the way, is that other guy still there? I'm never getting my house back again, am I?